You finance a new Harley for 7 years. You make 72 payments. You own the title free and clear. And the moment something fails, you still need Milwaukee's permission to fix it. You paid $32,000 for a machine that requires a subscription to your own property rights. Since 2007, twin cam engine failures have generated an estimated $2.1 billion in dealer service revenue. Cam chain tensioners, oil pump failures, sumping issues that strand you 200 miles from home. But the worst part isn't the breakdowns, it's that they were engineered to happen on a schedule. A quiet rebellion is forming. Riders are abandoning the new showroom floor entirely and executing what insiders call the pre-1999 loophole, buying machines Milwaukee never designed to fail. To understand why smart riders are fleeing new Harleys, you first have to understand the profit model they built around your breakdown. Look at Harley-Davidson's investor presentations from 2006 to 2019. Buried in the revenue breakdowns is a category called Parts and Accessories and General Merchandise. In 2018, that segment generated $866 million, nearly a quarter of the company's total revenue. A significant chunk of that figure comes from replacement parts for engines that should not need replacing. The twin-cam engine launched in 1999, and with it came a fundamental shift in corporate philosophy. The previous generation, the Evolution engine, had run for 15 years with a reputation for mechanical longevity that bordered on legendary. Owners routinely logged 150,000 miles on original internals. Dealers hated it because there was nothing to fix. So Milwaukee redesigned the revenue model by redesigning the engine. The twin cam introduced chain-driven camshafts with plastic shoe tensioners positioned inside the crankcase. These tensioners ride against the cam chains constantly, wearing down with every revolution. By 40,000 to 60,000 miles, the shoes disintegrate. When they fail, the timing failure is catastrophic, and suddenly you are looking at a $3,000 to $7,000 repair that requires splitting the cases. This was not an engineering mistake. This was a ticking clock installed at the factory, calibrated to detonate just outside your warranty window. The parts are cheap to manufacture but expensive to access, buried deep in the engine where labor hours multiply. Meanwhile, the diagnostic systems got locked down. Bikes made after 2011 require proprietary software to clear codes, calibrate sensors, and authorize new components. Your local independent mechanic gets frozen out, and you funnel back into the dealer network. Labor rates reach $175 per hour in major markets. The machine you paid for becomes a recurring subscription to the people who sold it to you, a debt that renews every time something wears, breaks, or updates. You are not buying a motorcycle. You are buying a maintenance contract disguised as freedom. Look at this cam chain tensioner. It's a $47 part, a spring-loaded plastic shoe about the size of your thumb. When it fails, it takes your engine with it. Forums are filled with the wreckage. A 2006 Dyna owner in Arizona watched his oil pressure drop at a stoplight and heard the death rattle before he could pull over. It cost $5,400 to repair, and the trade-in value was destroyed. A 2012 Street Glide with 52,000 miles grenaded on a highway in Tennessee. The owner had just paid off the loan 2 months earlier. A touring rider in Colorado did everything right. Synthetic oil, dealer services, babied the throttle, and still needed a complete bottom-end rebuild at 61,000 miles. These are not isolated failures. The pattern is so consistent that aftermarket companies built entire product lines around replacing the factory defects. Gear-driven cam conversions, upgraded oil pumps, billet tensioner replacements. An entire cottage industry exists solely to fix what Milwaukee broke on purpose. But the deeper betrayal is the diagnostic lockout. Modern Harleys run on a CAN bus system that controls everything from fuel mapping to security. When your check engine light appears, your options narrow to one, the dealer. Independent shops can read some codes, but clearing them, reflashing modules, or pairing new components requires Harley Digital Technician software, which the company refuses to license to independents. You cannot fully diagnose your own machine. You cannot authorize your own repairs. The title says you own it, but the software says otherwise. There is, however, a loophole before 1999, a narrow window in Harley's production history where the engineering philosophy prioritized durability over dealer dependency, and the electronics stayed simple enough that any competent mechanic could service them without corporate permission. The bikes built before the twin cam era operate on entirely different principles. No plastic tensioners, no CAN bus restrictions, no proprietary hostage systems. But which specific models qualify, and why is the window for acquiring them closing faster than most riders realize? You're about to find out that the escape hatch has a limited capacity. The Evolution engine ran from 1984 to 1999. 15 years, one basic architecture, and a reliability record that embarrassed its own manufacturer. To understand why, look at the cam system. Evolution engines use 4 gear-driven camshafts riding on bearings inside a separate gear case bolted to the right side of the engine. No chains, no plastic tensioners, nothing designed to disintegrate at a scheduled interval. When these components wear, and they eventually will, the repair is measured in hundreds of dollars, not thousands, and you can access the gear case without splitting the crankcase. The ignition and fuel systems from this era are equally liberated. Carbureted models require zero software interaction, while early fuel-injected variants use open architecture systems that independent tuners cracked decades ago. You can diagnose, repair, and modify these machines with tools that fit in a saddlebag and knowledge that lives in your head instead of a corporate server. This mechanical transparency does something radical. It transfers power back to the owner. You are not waiting for dealer appointments or authorizing $800 diagnostic sessions to discover what you could have found with a timing light and a compression gauge. The machine reveals itself to anyone willing to learn its language. And the aftermarket support runs deep. 40 years of continuous production means parts availability that borders on absurd. Everything from complete crate engines to individual gaskets ships next day from multiple vendors competing for your business. Buying a pre-twin cam Harley is not nostalgia. It is a calculated act of mechanical self-defense. You are choosing an architecture that was designed when engineering priorities meant building things to last, rather than building things to return customers. The philosophy embedded in the metal is fundamentally different. If you are learning something from this video, consider subscribing. We expose these corporate schemes every week, and the next one involves how manufacturers are using software updates to remotely degrade performance on vehicles you already paid for. You paid for the privilege of complexity. But simplicity is still available if you know where to look and move before the market corrects. Here's your acquisition target list from 1984 to 1999. Evolution engine big twins. That means Softails, Dynas, FLH touring models, and FXR sport tourers carrying the 1,340 cubic centimeters Evo power plant. The sweet spot sits between 1992 and 1999. These later Evos benefited from 15 years of continuous refinement while retaining full mechanical accessibility. Belt final drive came standard, eliminating chain maintenance. 5-speed transmissions offered highway-friendly gearing. Fuel injection arrived in 1995 on touring models, and the early SEFI system remains tuner-friendly. Avoid anything with 30,000 miles or less unless you can verify storage history. These are often barn finds with deteriorated seals and varnished carburetors. The ideal range falls between 40,000 and 80,000 miles with documented service history, because a broken-in Evo with maintenance records has proven its reliability rather than promised it. Pricing is accelerating. Clean FXR models that sold for $6,000 in 2018 now command $12,000 to $18,000. Softail customs have doubled in value. Even rough touring bikes with cosmetic issues are climbing past $8,000 because buyers understand the mechanical value underneath the oxidized paint. The market is splitting into two populations. Some people buy depreciation on new models, and other people buy appreciation on old ones. Every month that passes, another twin-cam owner discovers their engine's expiration date and starts hunting for an Evo, which tightens supply and elevates prices. Your advantage is moving now, while dealerships are still pushing 0% financing on machines engineered for failure, and while the masses remain hypnotized by touchscreens and keyless ignition. The loophole exists in plain sight, unprotected by anything except general ignorance. This pattern repeats across every industry we cover. Automakers, equipment manufacturers, electronics companies, they have all discovered that dependency generates more revenue than durability. Next week, we are exposing how the tractor industry perfected this scam a decade before motorcycles caught up. The scheme is always the same: engineer the failure, lock down the repair, and harvest the customer for life. Harley-Davidson did not invent this playbook. They just applied it to something you love. But the loophole exists. Pre-1999. Evolution engines offer full mechanical sovereignty. No software leash, no dealer dependency, no subscription disguised as ownership. The window is closing because too many people are waking up, and the supply of these machines is fixed permanently.